It's a mystery that's fascinated internet sleuths for decades. On February 9, 2004, 21-year-old Maura Murray packed her things, emptied her bank account, and vanished. Was it foul play or an emotionally distraught young woman trying to disappear? 20 years later, we're still looking for answers. Maura Murray wasn't someone who seemed like she would just get up one day and decide to disappear. She grew up in Hanson, Massachusetts, about 30 miles outside of Boston, in a working-class family. She was one of 5 kids to Fred and Maura Murray, and the youngest daughter. The Murrays described Maura as an overachiever. She did well in both school and sports. She attended West Point after high school, but left her second year to pursue a nursing degree at the University of Massachusetts. Speaking with Maggie Freeling for Oxygen's The Disappearance of Maura Murray, Murray's high school friends described her as a little bit of a free spirit who would travel into Boston on days off from school. They said that while it wouldn't have been surprising for her to pack up and leave for a weekend on a whim, it was out of character for her not to return home.
I figure she'd kind of resurface when she was good and ready.
In the months before she disappeared, it seemed Maura was dealing with some personal issues. In November 2003, she was caught using a stolen credit card number at a couple of local restaurants. According to the police report, Maura said she found the number on a used receipt, but did not give a reason as to why she'd taken it. This charge was set to be dropped after 3 months of good behavior. On February 5, 2004, only days before she disappeared, Maura was at her job on campus where she checked ID going into the dorm when she had a phone call with her sister Kathleen that reports have described as upsetting. Kathleen told Maggie Freeling that she and her fiancé at the time were having issues on top of both struggling with substance abuse.
Did you tell Maura that?
Yeah.
According to the Whitman-Hanson Express, Maura's supervisor found her crying 3 hours later and walked her back to her dorm. Maura never told anyone the exact reason she was so upset. Then on February 7th, Maura borrowed her father's car and went to a party on campus. On her way back to drop the car off at his motel around 3:30 a.m., she ran into a guardrail. The accident caused thousands of dollars in damage. On her podcast, Media Pressure, Maura's sister Julie gave some insight into what she thought Maura was going through just before she disappeared. According to her, while their father was disappointed about the car, Maura was her own worst critic, who beat herself up over the accident. Julie also said that Maura had previously struggled with an eating disorder, and she thought Maura had likely relapsed. She said she was making poor decisions leading up to her disappearance. Her behavior was not characteristic of her. On Monday, February 9th, Maura appeared to be making travel plans. Around 1 p.m., she made a call to Dominic and Linda Salamone, a couple who owned a rental condo in Bartlett, New Hampshire. Linda couldn't remember what specifically she spoke to Maura about, but she thinks she might have given her a recommendation on where to stay since the couple's condo was unavailable. About an hour later, Maura called a hotel booking company. Its system was down at the time, so she wouldn't have been able to make a reservation. Throughout the day, Maura's boyfriend, Bill Rausch, had been trying to reach her. She sent an email to him around 1 p.m. that read, "I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promised to call today, though."
It was in response to a voicemail I'd left her, but I, missed her and loved her and was anxious to talk to her again.
She did wind up calling him an hour later and leaving a voicemail, telling him she loved him and wanted to talk. That afternoon, she also sent emails to her professors and to her boss, saying that there'd been a death in the family and she would be out of town for a few days. There had been no death. Maura's friend, Liz Druniak, told the Whitman-Hanson Express there was something she wanted to get away and think about. Maybe she just wanted to get away. She was probably under a lot of pressure. From there, Maura packed her dorm room, down to the art on the walls in boxes, packed up her clothes, toiletries, birth control, and textbooks, and headed for the ATM. She took out nearly everything she had, $280, bought $40 worth of alcohol at a local liquor store, checked her voicemail, and started driving. Maura was heading down Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire around 7 p.m. when she crashed her car into some trees outside of Tim and Faith Westman's home. Faith called the sheriff's department to report the accident, at which point she said she saw a man in the car smoking a cigarette. Tim later said that he thought it had been a woman on her phone. At the same time, Arthur Butch Atwood, a school bus driver who lived in the area, was coming home when he saw the accident. He pulled over to help and identified Maura as the person in the car. He told the Caledonian Record that she was cold and shivering, but seemed otherwise uninjured. Atwood also said that he offered to call the police for Maura, but she told him that she'd already called AAA. When he offered to let her wait at his house, she declined. Atwood wound up calling the police anyway, but by the time they arrived at the scene, Maura was gone.
You found her car. She was in an accident. She's not there. Where is she?
Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith arrived at the scene at 7:46 p.m. According to Smith's accident report, the car was locked when he arrived. The windshield was cracked on the driver's side and both airbags were deployed. In the car, Smith found a damaged box of wine and a Coke bottle which had a strong alcoholic odor. It should be noted, though, that Atwood had said Maura didn't seem like she'd been drinking when he talked to her. Maura's AAA card, forms that her father had asked her for regarding her prior accident, and a printout of directions to Burlington and Stowe, Vermont, were also found in the car. But the strangest findings were outside of the car. There, Smith found a rag that Maura had stored in her trunk stuffed into the tailpipe. According to the Whitman-Hanson Express, it's believed the rag could have been used to check for leaks in the exhaust system, or, as Fred Murray believes, plugging the tailpipe might have also kept a smoking exhaust from attracting police attention.
Her car had lost a cylinder. It was oil, the smoke blowing out the back. But if you see the police, you have to get by them.
While there were tire marks in the snow, Smith didn't find any on the road. There also weren't any footprints heading into the woods. New Hampshire State Police Lieutenant John Scarinza later told the Caledonian Record that Maura's backpack, which she used at school, was missing from both the car and her dorm. Sergeant Smith spoke to both the Westmans and to Atwood before he and Atwood went out in different directions to look for Maura. Atwood took the back roads for about 15 minutes, while Smith took Route 112 west. Around 8 p.m., EMS and the fire department arrived to tow Maura's car and clear the accident. Smith left around 9:30 to answer another call, and nothing else was done until the following day around noon, when police issued a "be on the lookout" for Maura. Her family wasn't notified until nearly 3:30 that afternoon, though, when a message was left for Fred that his car had been abandoned. By the time he actually got it, it was after 5 p.m., and it wasn't until Wednesday that New Hampshire Fish and Game put together a search. Maura's family, New Hampshire Fish and Game, New Hampshire State Police, and Haverhill Police set out in search of Maura, but in spite of the additional use of a helicopter and a search dog, they came up empty, except for one lead. The dog tracked Maura's scent to an intersection about 100 yards from where she'd crashed. Police then suspected she could have been picked up by a car there. On Thursday, police issued a press release stating that Maura was endangered and possibly suicidal, and the Haverhill department suspended its search until new leads developed. At that point, the family decided to go to Vermont to look for Maura, but Fred was told by police there that they hadn't even been informed of her disappearance. By the 10-day mark, New Hampshire Fish and Game conducted a second search of the area, and the FBI got involved, but still nothing. After 6 months, the search for Maura was officially called off. There have been a number of theories as to why Maura would have packed up and left in the first place, and one that's been floating around for years is the idea that she discovered she was pregnant. According to police reports, she had looked up the effects of alcohol on a fetus before she disappeared. James Renner, who wrote True Crime Addict: How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray, has speculated that Maura planned to start a new life with her baby in Canada. But the internet searches could be explained by the nursing classes Maura was taking, and her family is firm in their belief that not only was she not pregnant, but that she wouldn't have just disappeared without telling anyone. One thing we do know for sure is that Maura had been having problems in her relationship with Bill Rausch. There were rumors that one or both may have been unfaithful to the other, and Maura's earlier email to him seemed to indicate that she was struggling with something emotionally. It's also been theorized that Maura could have been running from her father, Fred. He was known to be strict, and it's thought that he had pushed Maura too hard to succeed, both academically and in sports. The pressure she was under at the time could have been a factor in her leaving, but Fred says that while he did coach his daughters, they, and Maura specifically, were self-driven.
People can say stuff like that, but, they're just slowing us down.
Likewise, the police theory that Maura was suicidal has also gotten pushback from her family. Her sister Julie thinks the fact that Maura both turned in homework the morning she left and had the accident forms their father had asked her for in the car is proof she was planning on coming back.
I believe that she was met with foul play. Just because it was out of character for Maura to just take off and leave everything.
And the police reports that said Maura had packed up her entire dorm room, Julie has an issue with those too. According to her, Maura had just moved into a new room 12 days before she disappeared. So those boxes of belongings weren't there because she was planning to leave. They were there because she hadn't finished unpacking yet. Maura's family is convinced that she was either abducted or killed the night she disappeared. The lack of footprints in the snow around her car points to a couple possible scenarios. She either made her way along the highway to hitchhike, or she was picked up by another driver at the scene of the accident before police arrived. In May 2004, Lieutenant Scarinza told reporters that a potential witness had come forward to say that he'd seen someone matching Maura's description only a few miles east from the accident along Route 112 the night she disappeared. At the time, the witness didn't think to notify notify police because he had his dates mixed up. It was only after he checked his work records that he realized it could have been Maura. Bill Rausch also claimed to have gotten a voicemail during the time the search began for Maura while he was going through airport security. He described the message as sounding like someone crying or whimpering. Police looked into the call and traced it to an AT&T calling card, which was then traced to the American Red Cross. At that point, any further investigation into the voicemail was dropped. In late 2004, Fred Murray was given a rusty and possibly bloody knife by a man who claimed his brother had killed Maura and buried her body on his property. According to the Whitman-Hanson Express, Fred tried to turn the knife over to police, but was told no one was available to accept that kind of evidence at the time. He later mailed it to state police, who confirmed to him that they'd received it, but then didn't follow up any further. On Julie Murray's podcast, their brother Curtis said, "I think Maura was taken. I think she most likely got in the car with the wrong person and nothing good came from that. She's most likely dead now."
I kept hearing, well, she's an adult and she can do anything she wants. And I was the only one out there.
The Murrays have long struggled with the police investigation into Maura's disappearance, and they've been outspoken about the ways in which they feel her case has been mishandled. On her podcast, Julie claimed there'd been instances of incompetence by police and said, "I believe that's why 19 years later we're still left without answers." There are plenty of instances of subpar police work. Remember the Salamones, the couple who owned the rental property that Maura called before she left? They weren't even interviewed by police until nearly a year after the disappearance. When Sergeant Smith and Butch Atwood drove around looking for Maura after the accident, the Murrays say that neither one checked Route 112 going east, the direction the later witness claimed to have seen Maura walking. There was also a note found inside Maura's car that her family hadn't been told about, of an address and phone number. Julie called the number prior to launching her podcast and said the person she spoke to owned a condo 25 miles from where Maura crashed and had never been contacted in relation to the incident. Nearly 2 years after her disappearance, Fred sued the New Hampshire governor, the state's attorney general, and state police, hoping to gain access to case files and evidence.
This is just part of overturning the next stone to see what's under it.
His petition was denied. In 2024, the U.S. Sun reported that a trove of evidence had been released to the public, although Julie told the publication that the family had gained access to most of the information years ago. In 2006, a group of retired law enforcement agents called the New Hampshire League of Investigators got involved with the case and began their own investigation. In October of that year, they set up another search of the area where Maura went missing, which included the home of the man who'd been suspected by his brother of killing Maura. The property was in the process of being sold. Several cadaver dogs got hits in the house, and some items were removed as evidence, including a piece of carpet. In 2019, investigators, along with the FBI, returned to the property and a search of the basement was done, but nothing related to Maura was found.
I thought we had a really good shot at being right.
In her 2024 interview with the U.S. Sun, Julie said that the family had been told that the rusty knife given to Fred had in fact been tested, but said, "We don't know if the knife itself was tested recently or if it was tested years ago, and we're only finding out now." She declined to say whether or not Maura's DNA had been found on the knife, though.
We're just looking for those answers, and we're hoping that this is the year.
Today, Maura's case continues to fascinate internet sleuths and armchair detectives around the world, but it doesn't seem to be any closer to being solved than it was 20 years ago. There are plenty of theories. She ran away, she was killed, she's living somewhere in Canada, and plenty of subreddits dedicated to the case. When it comes to Maura's family, though, they're pretty sure that if she were alive, she would have been found by now, but they're not giving up hope that someone, somewhere, knows what really happened to her.